Here we are.
We are here.
The show's been so good. How about that band?
I know.
Holy cow.
Aren't they amazing?
What are they called again?
The Helio Sequence.
The Helio Sequence. I just got to see them live, like a full show. For people listening at home, it's spectacular to watch as well.
It is.
Because
it is.
the man with the drums,
Benjamin,
is he's like an animal, in the Muppets. You know, he really the drumsticks are like extensions of his body, and it's very inspiring to watch.
It is. It's like pure joy.
It is pure joy.
Yeah.
And
possible anger too. I mean, can you imagine how much anger you could get out doing that?
He's got a lot of anger, and he doesn't like to talk about it, but he expresses it very well in his drum playing. And I loved your political sketches as well.
Thanks.
I got my first political Q&A question. I've been doing
You
Q&As all around the country.
And you're not a fan of the political comedy
I
generally.
don't do political comedy, but then tonight, here in Portland at Cinema 21, somebody said, well, what do you think of the conventions?
And your response was?
Here's what I said. Well, my wife and I we watched them both. We watched the first one, hopefully, the RNC one, and we were like, what do you guys got? All right, nothing. All right, let's keep moving, and then we watched the DNC, and it was very inspiring to see Michelle.
She gave a really wonderful speech.
Because as a public speaker myself, it's strange to see someone whose job is not even to be a public speaker, who is way better than I could ever be as a public speaker. That's extraordinary. And that was great. And then somebody goes, yeah, and I like Bill Clinton too. And I was like, yeah, Bill Clinton's speech was great. And they were like, but not Barack. And I go, yeah, but the thing about Barack is he's got to do the heavy lifting. And by the heavy lifting, I mean that the country is so fat. And so he's got to carry us, and we're just so heavy.
We are, in a lot of ways. Yeah.
But so I was, and then I was driving down from Seattle today, because I've just been traveling around the country with the film, and they're on the drive down on that 5, the Route 5 or the
I-5?
I-5, you guys call it. Yeah, I was corrected on that earlier. I said the 5, and somebody goes, actually, they don't call it that here. And I was like,
we don't use articles in Oregon.
Yeah, I'm getting that loud and clear. But I was driving on the I-5, and. Is that what it is?
It's like you're a native.
Yeah. I was on the I-5, and I was giving someone a high five, who was in the passenger seat, because here's the thing. I drove, it was me alone, high-fiving air. There's a billboard of someone that wrote, it just says, vote for an American.
Oh.
And I know. And I swear to God, I think I live in New York City, so it's very insular. It's a lot of liberal folk. And so I assumed that it was like an ad for milk or something. You know what I mean? I just thought it was for something else. I'm like, surely no one believes that crackpot theory. Just Donald Trump. But apparently that's gone viral. People actually, that was real. That was like an anti-Obama billboard.
Yeah, but what's great about it is that it's such a great investment for the person who, the good thing about it is it's like them burning their money. When they buy a billboard that, because they need to hire an ad agency to make themselves seem less batshit.
Yeah, but the question is, did they burn the money? That's a conspiracy theory for you.
Right. Well,
that's something to think about. Who knows if they burned the money? Who knows if they spent the money? Who knows what money is? Are we on the same wavelength, people?
Did you buy the billboard?
I purchased the billboard, yes. I have it. I have it roped onto my rental car's roof like the Beverly Hillbillies.
Well, speaking of your car, so
it's much funnier than anything that will transpire from this point on.
Good.
That's just.
we actually have a clip from the very beginning of your film. Like we're gonna play the beginning of the film just to kind of give people an idea. We kind of laid it out, but do just a quick synopsis of what the film is for people.
Well, the film is it's a narrative film adaptation of my one-man show, which was autobiographical, about how I jumped out a second-story window in my sleep. You were saying this, Courtney, earlier, but it's thematically the film is about this character who's in denial about his health getting worse, his relationship getting worse with his college sweetheart, and his career going so poorly, and that's sort of what the film is about.
Well, and I spoke at the beginning of the show sort of
about. You called me Matt, by the way. Earlier you go Matt Birbiglia.
Did I say Matt Birbiglia?
Yeah, my character's Matt Pandemiglio, so.
Oh, I may have, yeah, and then Matt Harding, and I am old. Soup's old.
No old person says soups.
Also, I am
My
not
grandma
sure.
used to say that all the time. I am soups tired.
I'm also just not sure who you are.
Yeah, no, you're right. I get that.
No, we've actually been. Oh, to get into the film,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
We just start it clean, Mike.
Guys, this is show business.
Exactly.
So what's happening right now is Courtney fucked some shit up, and so she. No, I did, because I interrupted. I interrupted, and so we got to start again. Go ahead with this original thought.
Right. So I spoke at the beginning of the film about the narration and the way that the film was structured, and it opens up actually with the narration, and it's Mike, and what you're going to hear is he's in his car, and he's about to go through a toll booth, and it's the very first scene that you see in the film.
Before we begin, I just want to ask you to turn off your phone. I say that because I was at a movie recently, and the guy next to me answered his phone during the movie, and he answered it by saying, and I quote, he said, "Who dis?" Which means not only was he willing to talk to someone, he was willing to talk to anyone. He didn't care who it does. Thanks. I'm not sure what the past tense of dis is, but he did not care who it does. I'm gonna tell you a story, and it's true. I always have to tell people that, because inevitably someone will come up to me and they'll be like, "Is that true?" And I'll be like, "Yeah." And they'll be like, "Was it?" I don't know how to respond to that. Like, I guess I could say it louder, you know, like, "Yeah!" And they'd be like, "It's probably true, say it louder."
Mike Birbiglia.
All right. Thanks. I didn't have to do anything during that.
Yeah, you just got to sit and listen to yourself.
That was enjoyable.
And so the story that I told
here.
at the beginning of the show about you guys sort of trying to troubleshoot what was going wrong.
Yeah.
How did you guys come up with the idea to change the tense that you were talking in?
Here's what it was like. I was like, I got it. And then I was like, here's what we do. We goes to something like this, and then a something like this, and ba-da-dee-doo, and everybody was like, bango, and then that was it. No,
So
it was, no, I'm just
making of
kidding.
this film
It was,
so it was like a Scooby-Doo episode.
it was like a
making the movie.
Scooby-Doo episode. It was, no, we were in the edit and we were banging our heads against the wall, and because it wasn't getting laughs, like stuff that was getting laughs literally for years when I would tell it on stage was getting like dead stares. And so it really, it ended up being similar to what you were saying earlier, like this exploration of self where I was like, what is comedy, you know? And I discovered that it's when stuff happened to you before. But not at the time.
Not that complicated. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had never, hold on, I'm gonna do an ID. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Live Wire Radio, and we're talking to Mike Birbiglia, the writer and director of Sleep Walk With Me.
And if you're already tuning in, I've been drinking. No, I haven't been drinking, but it sounded like it. And if you're already tuning in, you're just having a great time.
It's true. If you say that enough, they actually start to have a good time. So I saw an interview with Ira. You have never directed a feature film before.
Yeah.
And I saw an interview with Ira where he said that you had read this Francis Ford Coppola quote that said, "Just act like the film is going to exist and tell people you can come with, but this film will exist." And he said that that's essentially what you did. How hard was it for you to have this blind faith when you had never done this before?
Because I had done it with the whole rest of my career. You know what I mean? Like, I did it with my stand-up comedy career. Like, when I was 22 and I graduated from college and I had spent, you know, all my parents' money and, you know, and putting them into debt and everything. And I was like, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this job where they pay me $40 to do something that cost me $75 in gas and tolls. And, like, that's a ridiculous thing to tell your parents. And I don't wish that upon anybody. But I did that in stand-up comedy, and then eventually it started going really well. And so I felt like it was something I had done before.
There was a really, I thought, wonderful scene in the film when it's your first stand-up comedy gig, and it's exactly what you're talking about. It was costing you way more. You were in this terrible hotel, but you were like a little kid.
Yeah, and
you were so excited.
And the Backstreet Boys are playing through that, which is the most expensive thing in the whole movie. We paid $25,000 for the song "I Want It That Way."
Wow.
And that's only if the movie doesn't make money. Like, if it starts to make money, the Backstreets are gonna just cash in. The Backstreets will be back, as they say.
Wow, we were talking earlier about bad investments. Feels like
it teaches you the great lesson, which is that the Backstreet Boys always win.
That is. You know what? You're absolutely right. So what you did with this film was that you were reenacting a difficult time in your life in the places that they had happened. What does that do to your emotional life when you're doing this?
I'm sorry to be so distracted, but there's a person knitting in the front row. Is that for the show that we're doing right now,
yeah.
Or is that like a completely separate activity?
You know what? Every guest gets a merkin when they go.
Oh. Well, I stand corrected. I stand corrected because I don't know what a merkin is, but I bet it's good because everybody cheered when you said it.
It's a pubic wig.
Oh, really? Oh my God. I don't want that.
You don't actually get one.
Oh, I don't get that? This bit has spun out of control, like that knitting.
What did I ask you about pain? I was asking you about pain.
This is what happens when anyone talks to me, is I distract them away from the conversation until we're talking about nothing.
I actually, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Start again. We got to start again, guys.
Well,
I'm sorry. I want to apologize for Courtney. She's new. They've only been doing this show for a week, and so there's going to be some growing pains.
Yeah, no. But speaking of ADD, I saw you. I actually saw you on Bonnie Hunt's show.
Oh,
and you
wow.
were talking about that you struggle a little bit with ADD, and I thought directing is all about just all of these details and all of these decisions just constantly coming at you.
Yeah.
So I just wondered, did that make it harder for you?
It was very hard. Like, I have to say, like, when I'm very ADD, and making a film in some strange way was the perfect antidote to that ADD, because you basically have to manage 7 art forms occurring simultaneously, between acting and directing and photography and music composition and makeup and hair and wardrobe, and all of these things have to happen simultaneously. So in some certain way, it actually did kind of it solved a certain ADD issue where I was like, I want to think of everything all at once, and I
you
could.
were able
to the point where when I went home at night, I was just like, oh, I'm done. I just like, I went to sleep and my brain I felt like every day it was full.
Yeah. Well, it definitely was. Did you have any sleepwalking issues while you were shooting?
I did, yeah, because one thing about directing a film is that it's really not good for curing a sleep disorder because you have a lot of anxiety, you have a lot of stress, and I would have these instances. It was funny, I was talking to Joss Whedon about this recently, who I have a feud with.
Exactly.
As you might know, I have a YouTube feud,
You
myself
do.
and Ira Glass, with Avengers director Joss Whedon, and then I was asking him, because in the Avengers, they have these sequences where I'm looking at it, and I'm like, clearly that single scene took a week to shoot, and how do you go to sleep knowing that you've only shot a sixth of what your scene is, essentially? And he said it drove him crazy, and that he would at certain points, like, he would wrap a scene, and then he would be falling asleep, and he'd go, oh my God, we forgot to shoot the close-up of Sam Jackson, or some huge thing, and then they would have to come back the next day and do it. But for me, it caused me a lot of anxiety, and I was actually sleepwalking. I would have instances where I would dream that I was directing myself, acting as myself while sleeping. So in other words, I'm not even making this up, my wife would come in and I would be adjusting lamps in our bedroom. I would be walking around adjusting lamps, and she'd be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, we're shooting. And she was like, no, we're not. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but we are. I would actually patronize her, which is the most insulting thing you can do when you're sleepwalking, is insult the person you're with for not seeing what you see. Like, oh, you just don't get it, like. And that's what happened. So anyway, we broke up, and now I'm a swinging single. No, my wife was wildly supportive of me through the process, and she would have to be, because it was insane.
Well, and it really is. It's incredibly poignant and charming, and what I love about it is that it just feels like storytelling. You know?
Thanks.
And you've talked in the past that I read a quote from you that you said, I have this sense of destiny that storytelling was going to return to comedy. This was back when Seinfeld, was really out there. Why do you think that this storytelling style, like you and Louis C.K., why do you think that this is back now?
Well, I think that there's something where for the last decade or so, everything is felt, and I don't know if this is true. This is just me making stuff up, but I'm not a scientist. But I don't know, it seems like everything is so synthetic these days. Like, it seems like everything is kind of like 3D or effects or CG and all these things. And I feel like in some ways, I don't know, people like at a certain point, people have to return to what it is to be a human being, that has to happen, just in a cyclical way.
Yeah.
Like, I just figured it would.
Yeah.
And it seems like it has.
Well, and the film is just a great example of that. The film is Sleepwalk With Me, and it's playing in theaters right now. You guys have managed with crowdsourcing to get into it's over 75 theaters,
You know
right?
what, now, by the end of September or mid-October, it's going to be 190 theaters.
Amazing.
It's all because of the internet.
Yeah.
Isn't that insane? It's because of you guys.
Yeah.
It's because you guys don't do your job at work all day. Instead of doing your job, you lobby for Sleepwalk With Me to be in more theaters.
You guys have done an extraordinary thing, and we wish you the greatest success with it.
Thanks so much for having me.
The film is Sleepwalk With Me. Mike Birbiglia, everybody.
Thanks, you guys.